This is the approach to Sturbridge Village. You have to think of this as a village during the 1830s. It's 50 years following the Revolution. It's still another generation before the Civil War. The animals here are being cared for in a traditional way, and they liked the attention enough to come over close to me. This guy really wanted to get some idea of what the camera was. Came up close, and it gave a chance for some really good texture shots. It's really kind of fascinating to have the animal so close, and I didn't have any kind of close range filter or magnifying lens, so these are really just shot with a 50mm, and that closeness is great to get the texture of the wool. Here's just a different look at the paddock from another angle, and you can see far in the distance that blue building is the Quaker Friends house. I was kind of smart to step into the barn and found this collection of pallets with birds all throughout it, and with the weather being as cold as it was, this was just a perfect place for them all to hang out. And it looks really great on the film. As I moved around the living museum at Sturbridge Village, I was able to meet a variety of reenactors that were telling about the work that they did in the village and life in the village. So here I just decided to stop and chat about some of the differences of the fabrics that are being produced. She's working with wool right now, which of course comes off of the sheep that I was just visiting. And they would have done a bit of work with cotton, but I took a moment to talk a little bit about linen, and at this point manufacturing within a factory was reducing the cost such that most families weren't growing flax and producing linen on their own. It was just a lot less costly to buy that from a store that was made in a factory. And so here this household work really was done with wool, and on a rare occasion some cotton. And after taking some time to talk with her, I spent some time around this area taking photos in the house and looking around for some good shots in the general village area. And it also turned out that my video lost its battery power. I didn't realize how short that it would be. So all the still images are done with my DSLR. In terms of a living museum, this is quite large, and I loved getting to walk around and see how they made everything feel like it was still ongoing. The reenactors were well costumed and really looked like they just lived there. It was really fantastic to get a look around. There were very few signs put on walls trying to explain things in terms of the living museum, and there were also some exhibits that had period information about weapons, about glass, about printmaking, and that kind of thing really helped to give context. You can see the oxen here. They didn't move enough to make a video worthwhile. This is the tinner, and what was fascinating is while talking with him, He made a point that he's not a tinsmith until about a generation later. In terms of the vocabulary of the time, he's a tinner or a tin man. He didn't mind me moving around the shop and taking pictures of tools, and you see here the fire, and he was glad to chat about his work. I thought it was just neat to see someone working and see their coffee cup. This is in the parsonage house, and it just seemed perfect to cast this in a monochrome. I didn't spend very much time talking about the recipes of the day, but it was just a charming thing to see everything being cooked in this traditional way. And this is a parson. Going out into the potter's yard, I got to talk a lot about their production methods, and what fascinated me is that they're really part-time potters. The blacksmiths were really welcoming, and they let me come beyond the chain to do a little bit of work with them. I was just struck by how soft and malleable the heated iron was. At this point, they don't yet have steel. It's sort of a byproduct of producing iron, but they don't have a consistent method. This is in the carding mill. I found that the squirrel had gotten in, and I figured he found a way out. The printer was the most fun to speak with. He was working on some muster notices for the local militia, and having been in the Army and worked in media, I thought it was especially fun to swap some stories about the work I had done in Iraq with printing. They print onto wet paper because it takes more ink, and then they leave it to dry.